If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with all my latest videos. Well, welcome to Life of Gaz, guys. Today I've come down here to Chatsworth Pipe, and I've come down here with the person who's responsible for me getting into sea fishing in the first place. This is Bill just there.
Alright guys, Bill here.
Now we're going to check out the low water mark down here, see what happens, and hopefully we're going to see some fish tonight.
Fingers crossed for some big uns.
First of all, let's look at the rigs and the baits. Now over on my longer rod, I'm fishing a size 5.0 hook. This has got a really long shank on it, and I'm fishing this one with fresh worm, dug only a few days before. Something you may have noticed on this rod, it's also got a sliding knot on it as well, and this is a stop knot which I originally started using freshwater fishing years and years ago, but I always put it on the longer hook lengths on my sea fishing rigs. This rod also spent the majority of the night being waded out to be cast, and this one I fished straight out at a lot more distance than the other rod, which had a smaller rig set on it. On the other rod I kept one hook baited with squid throughout the majority of the night, which obviously meant I needed to make some squid wraps, which I do just by wrapping it around a baiting needle and then tying it before actually poking the hook through. Now also this rig was a 3-hook flapper rig with the top and the middle hook, the top and the bottom hook being fished with frozen worm and the middle hook being fished with the squid wraps. And that being said, I was fishing this rod at a much shorter distance, just walking up to the water's edge and then just gently flicking it out. Now I wasn't flicking this one straight out, I was actually flicking it out back down towards Blackpool, so down towards the south, so this rod was away from all my headlights. Not long after setting up and casting out, then within about 20 minutes someone else had turned up and wanted to fish just down to the south of me, pretty much right where I had my rig. So I picked it up and brought it in just to avoid any tangles. Now as I was doing this, I hadn't seen a bite and I didn't even feel any fish on there until I got this a bit closer in, and at this point I'd opened up the account with my first fish of the night, another 4-5 bearded rocklin. And unhooking this guy was fairly easy as well. He was hooked quite up close to his lips, so I just grabbed the hook, give it a quick squeeze and he popped off, just as easy as that. And then straight away took him down to the sea and released him and let him go off on his way. Now after that rocklin had gone back, Bill brought one of his rigs in to check on his bait. It had been soaking for about half an hour, only to find that it was in a bit of a tangle. Now this is the reason why I use line without any memory in it for my hook clamps, because this one, which was a shop bought rig, has clearly just been used with a bit of nylon, and that does have a lot of memory and it coils up into a spring. So if I'm using this stuff, what I always try and do, if I'm ever given the chance, is I'll let this stuff stretch out and try and take the memory out of it before I go fishing. Unfortunately, Bill didn't have a chance to do that today. After saying that about his rig though, it didn't stop him opening up the account with a nice size whiting over on his side as well, which meant that early on into the night, both me and Bill had both avoided a blank, which is fantastic. Now on the longer rod, after getting a few what looked like very small inquiry bites and nothing really substantial, I thought I'd give it another few minutes, pick it up and then see what the bait looked like. Now as soon as I picked it up and started reeling in, I felt the weight release and I felt some additional weight on that line and a few kicks as well, so I knew I was into my second fish of the night. And after a full 2 minutes and 3 seconds of bringing that fish in, he broke his way up through the surf and I got to have a look at what was my first whiting of the night. Now although this guy was in size, I put him back to let him go off and swim for another day out into the ocean. Now when I put him back, I sort of underestimated how deep the sea was at that stage, and I put him in a bit of water which was too shallow, which is where he had problems with swimming off. So I picked him up, took him out a little bit deeper, and he swam off absolutely fine first time once he was in that deeper water. Now as we were approaching low water, the bite rate really started to increase, and it's also following that, so did the catch rate as well. When bringing this rod in though, I could feel a lot more weight, and I could feel that it didn't feel like a cod, because when you get a cod on, they tend to try and dive to the bottom, and they tend to have big sort of thumps when you're actually bringing them in, whereas this had a lot of weight and none of that. So I was pretty sure that this was a double hookup of whiting, and when they broke the surface and came in and I could see these guys doing what they were doing, then it confirmed that I was right. 2 whiting on 1 rig. And one of these guys became the first of 2 fish that I took home that night. The other one got unhooked and released and sent back out to the sea. With the bites starting to come thicker and faster, unfortunately the tide was starting to chase us in faster and faster as well. So it was time for us to start thinking about packing up, but in the time it had taken me to think about packing up, I'd also managed to pick up bites on both rods. So bringing these guys in, I picked up my final fish of the night. First rod that I picked up and packed up, that one produced a whiting, which also went back out to the sea, and this was another nice release with the fish waving his tail at me as he swam off. and finally picking up the last rod. As soon as I'd taken the slack out and relieved the weight, then I could feel that there was a fish on here as well. Now this was the final fish that I caught of the night, and it was also the biggest as well, coming in at not a massive but 14 ounces, which is bigger than any of the whiting which I'd had previously in 2019. Didn't beat my 2018, which was over a pound, but this one was still a nice fish to take home for me tea.
Well, we had a decent night down here for a southeasterly. We managed to catch a rockling and a few whiting between us. So from me and Bill, we do hope you guys have enjoyed this one. Make sure you hit the subscribe button covering Bill's face right here, my last video there, and our playlist up top.
Cheers, guys.